Hello everyone, welcome to WisconsinPrepZone.com and a very special WIAA Level 2 football playoff edition of Prep Rally. I'm Rob Hernandez alongside Dennis Semrau and Jason Galloway. And before we get started, guys, I want to check here with Jason first. The feedback we got from last week's video is the kid from Alabama warm enough in these conditions? We got another cold, windy day. People want to make sure that you were able to thaw out after last week's Prep Rally.
Yeah, barely. This is more like January weather, you know.
He's already asked to move inside, Rob, for next week.
That's right. So we'll see how much longer we can hang out here. It were the great conditions, guys, last week for Level 1 on both Friday and Saturday, but especially Friday night, those games not impacted by the weather one bit. Let's start first with a quick look back. Jason, any surprises in your mind? Anything that pops out off the results from Level 1?
Not particularly. I think in Division I pretty much went as you expected. You thought maybe Verona would pull off the win since they were such a hot team. Had won 6 straight, had beaten La Follette. Well, La Follette was able to pull that out. And, you know, there were some upsets here and there, but I don't think there's anything too shocking.
Yeah, for the most part, Dennis, things kind of held true to form. My surprise was the fact that Waterloo handled Cedar Grove so handily in Division 5, but anything in your mind that really stands out as being too surprising here the first round of the playoffs?
Well, Monona Grove 37-0, but I figured they'd bounce back. At Evansville, Albany didn't stand a chance, so it was just total domination there. I think the halftime score, Stoughton 7, DeForest 6, got attention of a few people. I figured Stoughton would hang in there with them for a while, but again, just not enough offense, and DeForest was able to pull that out. Another great defensive effort. I think some of the scores, Darlington 66-6. How about Lancaster?
84 points to
120-some points scored in that game.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. And the number of running clocks, well, you're going to get some mismatches in that first round.
Yeah.
But I thought there were a lot of points put on the board last weekend.
Yeah, if I had $1 for every time someone tweeted at me that this is why you shouldn't have 224 teams in the playoffs in Level 1, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd be on a beach doing the Prep Rally. But, hey, Level 2 begins. We're here at Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb, actually, this is the football capital of the world this week. We got the Mount Horeb Vikings soccer team in state semifinal action on Thursday night, and then, of course, Friday night here at Mount Horeb in football, the American style. It is the Mount Horeb Barneveld Vikings against Jefferson. We'll get to that game in a minute, but let's start first, Jason, in Division 1. The two Big 8 conference teams that are left will be going up against Valley Football Association teams. Madison La Follette at Kimberly, the VAF or VFA North champion Kimberly Papermakers, and Fond du Lac coming down to Breitenbach Stadium to play Middleton. Obviously, on paper, there's one chance for the Big 8 to get a team through, and that'd be Middleton Fond du Lac. I
agree. I mean, you'd like to say La Follette has a chance up at Kimberly, but Kimberly's such a great team, it'd be a pretty unexpected result. When you look at the Middleton game, Middleton's defense has held opponents to 10 points or less in 9 of their 10 games this year, and they're facing a Fond du Lac team that finished second in the Valley Football Association South.
Right. And
the champion of that conference, Oshkosh North, got it handed to him in the first round. So you got to wonder if maybe Middleton, this is a better matchup for Middleton than we thought originally, and they got the game at home, so I like their chances.
Well, and Dennis, it'd be nice to see at least one Big 8 team get through to Level 3.
Yeah, would Middleton again this year. They were the conference champion. They had a chance to make up for their one loss to Sun Prairie, and they did that last week. Defensively, now they've got another 1,000-yard rusher they've got to try to shut down this week. But I just like the big players they have on both sides of the ball, including a quarterback who really came through last week. Jason had a chance to see him, the 60-yard run. I love the description in the paper of how he turned that, what looked like a sack, maybe into a touchdown. And you need playmakers at this time of the year, and Middleton's got plenty of them.
All right, Division 2, Dennis, the 2 Badger Conference teams, 3 Badger Conference teams still alive. 2 will play each other. Milton at Waunakee. Milton rallies to beat Watertown in Level 1. They'll play the Waunakee Warriors in a rematch of a game from earlier this season. Then Slinger at DeForest. On paper, it would look to be both games have a little bit of intrigue behind them. Milton playing better than they did against Waunakee, but Waunakee a different team as we've talked about in previous prep rallies because of the change of quarterback. And Slinger DeForest, 2 teams that are very seasoned at postseason football.
Well, first of all, the Badger North 4-0.
That's right.
DeForest, Mount Horeb Barneveld, Waunakee, and Reedsburg all won. That says something about that level of play this year, and that wasn't just a bunch of teams beating up on each other. I like that. DeForest, again, defensively, last year they won that first game and then lost to Oshkosh North in the second round when they had to go on the road. They got a home game. I like their chances there. Waunakee, since they moved Laufenberg over to basically the wildcat, but he can throw out of it. They've taken him out of the kicking game a little bit. That was sophomore kicking, so they're trying to save his legs a little. He is the ultimate playmaker, and I think that's going to be hard for anybody to stop here, especially in early rounds of the playoffs. I think Waunakee might be a year away from getting them back to that title status, but when they get to it, they're going to point to this team as being the one to do it.
Jason, do you think that Badger North, in the way that that top of the conference felt like playoff football, that can help Waunakee and DeForest in these two matchups? Because on paper they look pretty dead even.
Absolutely, yeah, I think they can. I think when you look at DeForest, the team doesn't always win. They don't always win pretty, but they keep winning. They won 7 straight. They've held every opponent during that streak under 14 points, and 4 of those wins have come by one score or less. So they find ways to win, and I think playing in a tough conference like they have all season really helps in that regard. And in terms of Waunakee, Milton's have gotten better, but I think they got a lot of confidence having beaten Milton 31-3 earlier in the year.
Definitely, no question about it.
Yeah, it's hard to beat a team a second time, but you got that confidence. Milton, I thought, coming off of the Monona Grove game, that was a pretty big win for them. Worried about maybe them taking a step back. They held off Watertown by 3 points.
Yep.
And I thought that was a good one now to get them in the second round. Still, I have to give, I think, the edge to Waunakee on this one.
Apparently the first ever playoff win for Bill O'Leary, the likable head coach down there for the Milton Redhawks. We'll see if number 2 is in the bag this week. Division 3 guys, Jefferson here at Mount Horeb Barneveld, a couple of conference champions going head-to-head, and then Reedsburg, which always seems to have a great postseason run against Monona Grove. Jason, let's start with you first. The Reedsburg-Monona Grove game, while on paper it may look heavily tilted towards Monona Grove, Reedsburg did give them a decent battle during the regular season.
They did. It was 26-7 in week 4, so it seems like that's a 3-score for Monona Grove. It's pretty decisive, but I think if I remember correctly, Reedsburg took Monona Grove to overtime last year, and they've played them tough recently. And again, Monona Grove looks a little bit more vulnerable than they did last year when they were the Division III champs. And I think they certainly can't overlook a team like Reedsburg.
No, not at all. And Dennis, Jefferson, Mount Horeb Barneveld, again, smash mouth football against a very high-powered Mount Horeb Barneveld attack.
I was here 3 years ago for the track meet, 56-40.
Wow.
Mount Horeb Barneveld over Jefferson. The first 12 times the team touched the ball, they scored. So get your calculators out for this one, because I think it could be a duplicate of it. Monona Grove, I want to just touch on the fact that last week in the first quarter, 190 yards passing, 4 or 5 for 3 touchdowns for Stephen Martini. Opened up that passing game, which a lot of teams haven't seen. I think that's the difference with a Reedsburg team that scored first, but then Monona Grove pretty much kept them in control. Again, they've had some injury problems when they can run that triple option with Austin Shavink, the starting quarterback who's been there 3 years, and they're stable of running backs. They can stay in games, but they don't have that comeback capability that an MG does.
All right. Well, Dennis, moving on to Division 4, we'll tap your knowledge for some key matchups here. Platteville, Lodi, and Marshall at Broadhead, Judah. While the Platteville record at 7-3 is the only one out of those 4 teams that's not 9-1, we saw what Platteville could do last year, and you couldn't ask for 2 better matchups in that bracket. The teams will meet next week in Level 3, the survivors of those 2 games. But who do you like? Platteville, Lodi, Marshall, Broadhead, Judah. They all seem pretty dead even on paper.
Well, I tell you, last week, Broadhead, Judah coming off again a big win over Walworth Bigfoot.
Right.
You can maybe have that little step back, 47-14 over Kettle Moraine. I think they're a tough physical team. Marshall has to play some Division 5 schools during the regular season.
Right.
It's always been a challenge for them. Are they up for that competition when they go to the next level? I'd have to give this edge to Broadhead Judah. In all the Cardinals. We've got 2 Cardinals going at each other. Boy, I love Lodi's defense. I've seen them a couple of times. They've only given up 74 points all year long. But Platteville, again, doesn't matter how many losses you have, and their 3 losses are against some pretty good teams. Scott Stotts, who was a coach at Lodi before he went to Platteville, I think have a chance to beat his old team.
Well, they've met countless times here in the postseason since Stotts went down to Platteville, so they get to do it again with a chance to move on to Level 3. I should mention, too, that Marshall, one of the teams they beat was Jefferson, will be playing here on Friday night, so that's a signature win for, and then, of course, Jefferson up in Division 3, but Dennis is right, most of their schedule against Division 5 schools. And speaking of Division 5, Jason, the Lancaster Flying Arrows, the Poynette Pumas, battling your team, Poynette, is probably going to have its hands full, and how do you see that one going? What do they have to do to slow down a Lancaster team coming off an 84-point performance? I'm not sure I ever thought I'd say that on the prep rally.
Well, like you said, that Lancaster offense is something else. But Poynette, comes in this game only giving up 120 yards on the ground per game, and I think they have what it takes to at least slow that Lancaster offense down a little bit, stay in the game. I really think Pointe has a good chance in this game. Obviously, they're pretty sizable underdogs, I'd say.
Yeah.
But
on the road too.
But I think they can get it done.
Also, had to ask about the Waterloo-Cambridge rematch. I know Cambridge won that one in the first time through just a couple weeks ago to clinch the conference title. But with what Waterloo did last week against Cedar Grove, I got to think that they're a little bit hungrier than they might have been even 2 weeks ago.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to come back. 2 weeks ago they lost 36-0 and come back and play the same team again. But I think he's going to be slowing down Josh Owens, the Cambridge running back. He had 244 yards and 3 touchdowns against Waterloo last time. He's up to almost 2,000 yards.
Wow.
And 27 touchdowns on the year. So that's really the key. If they can slow him down, they got a chance.
All right, we'll see how that goes in Division 5. Dennis, Division 6, a couple of big matchups to look at. One will be Saturday, Mineral Point rematch at Darlington. Darlington won that one en route to the conference title. But I wanted to ask you about Cuba City Lake Country Lutheran, and the 3 seed in Cuba City going up against the 2 seed in Lake Country Lutheran over at Kettle Moraine High School. Contrast the style, smash mouth football by Cuba City and the wide open attack, the spread offense for Lake Country. And we saw it last year when Lake Country went up against a smash mouth team in Blackhawk. They had a tough time handling the physicality of the game. What does a program like that learn from an experience like that, and how big a matchup is this going to be in the context of Division 6? Because quite honestly, if Cuba City is able to take out one of the unbeatens, it kind of changes the landscape a little bit.
It does, and this is where the weather comes into a factor, because we talk about passing attacks, and Ben Wilkins, the quarterback for Lake County Lutheran, he only had 122 attempts during the regular season, 1,500 yards passing, so they got a lot of big plays there, and that's where I think they're going to try to spread Cuba City out, get them all over, and the challenge for Cuba City is to keep that offense off the field, and with their style of play, I think it's going to be able to do that. I like again their physicality and the fact that there's that 0 right there.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get a team that's unbeaten, that adds that a little bit, and they got the underdog role. They got to love that.
I'm sure Cuba City would like a rematch against one of the 2 SWAL teams that they played against in the regular season. They beat Mineral Point, lost to Darlington, as many teams did, but I think Cuba City folks would love to see a rematch there, and we'll see how Mineral Point handles Darlington's second time around as well. Closing with Division 7, Jason, a lot of games here that pit teams that look to be really good against teams that don't have a great record but might be laying in the weeds. And the 2 games I want to talk about: Cambria-Friesland hosting Hilbert. Hilbert, traditionally a smaller team in a bigger conference. Same thing again this year, comes in at 6-4. Cambria 9-1. But Ithaca 10-0 and Blackhawk, the defending state champion, 7-3. That seems to be the one where on paper it may look like an upset if Blackhawk were to win, but given what they've done the last couple of years, I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, I think in this scenario you have to throw the records out the window in these 2 games with Hilbert and Blackhawk playing in more difficult conferences. I think that obviously their record's not going to be as good. I think looking at that Blackhawk game, it's the defending D7 champions in Blackhawk, who had a rut in the middle of the season. They're back on track, and this is really a game we're gonna figure out how the home teams in these 2 matchups. We're gonna really find out how good they are.
Well, and the other thing I've heard about Ithaca though is that they say that much like Blackhawk last year, that had those 2 great junior-senior classes, it seems to be the same thing with Ithaca this year. The question mark everybody has about Ithaca is their schedule tough enough to withstand a big game like this, because they just didn't have many big games on the resume this year. And if I look at this, Ithaca, the last Ridge and Valley Conference team standing, so that kind of says, while 10-0 looks nice on paper, they're going to have to represent the conference in a huge way on Friday night, or it's going to be curtains. So we'll see how that goes. Guys, before we close here, we should also mention that the 8-man football jamboree will be this Saturday up at Keene Stadium at Schofield, DC Everett High School. And one of our local teams, Madison Abundant Life, Country Day, St. Ambrose, the Tri-Up, at 7-2 against Siren, at 6-3, kicking things off at 10 a.m. And I know that we haven't had a lot of time to talk about 8-player football, but they've got it on the website. If they get to X number of teams, I believe it's 30 teams, they'll consider a postseason for this division of football. We've already talked about how the 8-player football has taken away a lot of the Northwest teams out of the Division 7 field, which is why you've seen a lot of southern schools go north for the postseason. But Dennis, Abundant Life, Mark Martinez, a good friend of the Prep Rally here, the head coach for Abundant Life Country Day St. Ambrose, back in this jamboree again. I believe it's all 3 years, and a chance to play Siren for that last game in kind of a showcase setting. What do you think of their chances, and what does it say about that program that they've been a kind of a standard bearer for eight man football?
They have, and they've been over at Wisconsin Heights, and Wisconsin Heights possibly as soon as next year could be an 8-man program.
Wow.
And that would definitely help speed that up. But also give them a team down here. It would be nice to have a nice rivalry. And Martinez just done a great job. And like you said, it's a great wide open style of football, a lot of fun, and they've taken those kids and really developed that so they have that experience with football. And I tell you, it's a jamboree right now, but for them, that's their state championship there. And they've got the teams kind of seeded. And I think playing that first game, I'm sure those guys are going to stick around and watch the other 3 games and kind of get that camaraderie around. And again, I think you look at Abundant Life as being the standard bearer down in the southern part of the state. And within 5 years, this won't be a jamboree; it'll be a state championship replacing Division 7.
I think even less than 5 years. I think as early as perhaps next year, the year after. I think there's more and more teams playing 8-man with numbers going down.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to grow, and I think they've almost reached the threshold already for.
Well, usually your schedules are a couple of years out.
That's
so
true.
I think, and then again. Just the adjustment, because some of the communities are still balking at it. You've got to get, I think, people like Martinez coming in, the representatives, was it David Hagen over there? At Madison Abundant Life, to kind of sell that program.
Well, and the elephant in the stadium here is the fact that Mount Horeb pairs with Barneveld. If the pressure became great, a lot of people wondering why doesn't Barneveld go back and play, 8-player football on their own rather than just send, 8 or 10 kids up here, every year and see if they can't grow the program to the numbers they need to have 8-player football. Same with Broadhead Judah. Judah, another, program that's done a nice job of helping out a co-op. Evansville Albany, another one. And will we see if they get to that point, will these other smaller communities then branch off from the co-ops and try to have reduced player football in their community? So a lot to look forward to. And go ahead.
I know Heights has also inquired about potentially pairing up with Barneveld once their contract with Mount Horeb ends. Not sure if anything will come of that, but
I don't think so. The kids for Barneveld play youth football here. They've got those kind of ties with the community, and it's been such a great relationship that I think
I agree.
For Heights, it's going to have to go the 8-man route, and it seems now that they've really grasped it and run with it. I think Pete, the coach over there, has said, guys, and the players are talking about it. They're the ones that are kind of starting to push it now, and when the players want to go that route, then I think it's an easier sell for other schools.
Definitely. And as Dennis said, 3 other games up at Schofield on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Bruce at 6-2 against Gibraltar at 8-1. At 4 p.m., Luck taking on Elkhart Lake Glenbeulah. Luck at 7-2, Elkhart Lake Glenbeulah. The Resorters at 9-0. And the marquee game, the 2 unbeatens going at it on Saturday night at 7. Prairie Farm at 9-0 against Green Bay New Lutheran. Basketball powerhouse, take note, playing 8-player football. Both teams 9-0. That'll close things out in the 8-player jamboree. And that'll close out this edition of the Level 2 Prep Rally. We'll be here on Friday on WisconsinPrepZone.com with Dennis Semrau and Jason Galloway of the State Journal. We'll be talking high school playoffs, Level 2. We'll with our live chat to 12 noon to 1 o'clock on WisconsinPrepZone.com, madison.com. Feel free to ask us your questions and hear what we have to say more as we continue to analyze the big games here in Level 2. And, of course, on Friday night and Saturday, our live blog with scores, updates from around the area throughout the state, not only for high school football, but state soccer, sectional volleyball. And then Dennis and I will be up at the WIAA State Cross Country Meet at Wisconsin Rapids with updates from that annual classic on Saturday morning and early Saturday afternoon. So a lot going on the high school football landscape this week. Jason Galloway will be out in Piscataway, New Jersey for the Badgers-Rutgers game. You can catch his live blog contributions on badgerbeat.com and madison.com. No shortage of live coverage from events this weekend. Again, for Dennis Semrau and Jason Galloway of the Wisconsin State Journal, I'm Rob Hernandez. Thanks for watching the Level 2 Prep Rally. We'll see you at the stadium.